The vast amount of video game adaptations that inhabit the Star Wars media, enlightening many young and even old fans around the vast galaxy and the Earth, to the new series that is Star Wars, possibly returning fan fanatics, or new fans entirely. Welcome back to our archives. I have been expecting you. Today, we're going to be delving into one of the more obscure, shrouded, and cryptic games that wasn't even given a release date. It wasn't even planned to be released, but was still in production and pre-production before its cancellation. I'm speaking about the game known as Battlefront 4. Battlefront 4 had a plethora of unique timelines that, in my opinion, would have best been conducted through the world between worlds introduced in Star Wars Rebels TV show and the continuity it provided. This game preceded Battlefront 5, which wasn't even in development, and exceeded Battlefront 3. Battlefront 3 was on the cusp of being released, before the company that was producing it eventually backed down and lost the rights to release the game, ultimately having Battlefront 3 and Battlefront 4 all cancelled. However, a few years ago, a plethora and constellation of unique concept art was leaked. So today, we are going to be delving into this concept art, gaining a new apprehension for the galaxy around us, exploring new timelines and options. And today, we are going to be tackling the one and only, the famed Jedi General of the Clone Wars era. No, my friends, not Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And what would happen if Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi turned to the dark side? Before we proceed, I implore you, use the Force to strike down the subscribe button and ascend to the rank of Master. With that out of the way, let us begin. Here, my friends, you can see the dark side Obi-Wan Kenobi. The dark side Obi-Wan Kenobi, at least displayed in this portrait, we can see is a young Obi-Wan Kenobi that had turned to the dark side. This Obi-Wan Kenobi, in my opinion, the most probable timeline that I can deduce that he would have turned to the dark side was straight after he partially embraced it during his duel with Darth Maul, fueled with the rage he felt with Qui-Gon Jinn's death, his own master. Obi-Wan Kenobi would have fallen to the dark side and become a dark Jedi, not a full-fledged Sith Lord, but a powerful being nonetheless. The reading that we have here goes as follows. In this timeline, it appears that Obi-Wan Kenobi has been on the dark side of the Force ever since his younger years. There are several pieces of concept art featuring the likeness of Ewan McGregor as a dark side version of Obi-Wan from the prequels, with varying dark side traits, and apparently he's always on the dark side throughout this alternate timeline. Moving back up a bit, we can see that this dark side Obi-Wan has a crimson lightsaber, tattoos engraved upon his face. His Padawan blade there to mock the Jedi, and is dressed in similar robes to Moff Gideon, but unmistakably the robes of the Sith. Moving down to this one, honestly the one I prefer. This, in my opinion, is the one that takes a similar concept to the one before. This is Darkside Obi-Wan, in my opinion, a few years after his duel with Maul. We can see that over here, we see the original Episode 1 Obi-Wan Kenobi on display. Then we have the Episode 2 variation, with a slight beard and wavy haircut. And then we have the Episode 3, the dark side is beginning to set into Obi-Wan. We see straps and clasps symbolize Obi-Wan being trapped by the power of the dark side multiple times, and as well as his modified Obi-Wan Episode 1 boots. We can see Obi-Wan here without his robes, wearing classic Sith battle armor, possibly stating he is a dark Jedi traveling the galaxy, expanding his power. He seems to be mainly adorned in armor at this time. Over at option B, we can see that Obi-Wan Kenobi has chosen to don some of his robes, adorning a skirt with a red colour scheme inlaid within it, overshadowing the black one. Moving on to this one, there is nothing really that changes, despite the fact that the robes on the torso have modified themselves, and Obi-Wan's hoodie has also changed, being slung over his head like a true Dark Lord of the Sith, pointing to the fact this might have been later in the timeline. We have a few more, however. This is not the end for Dark Obi-Wan. This one is actually my favourite out of the whole bunch. An old man, gnarled by the corruption of the dark side. Mostly a hermit, he wanders, searching for places and things with a strong connection to the Force. If he finds his finals, e.g. force crystals, talismans, and bones, he keeps about his person, in pouches or threaded through his clothes. This is Dark Obi-Wan Kenobi, if he turned to the dark side, possibly to become Darth Vader's Sith apprentice, or fell to the dark side after Anakin's fall. He had become an old, washed-up hermit, clearly out of his physical prime. He'd become more of a mutant than anything else. We can see his yellowed teeth, a ragged beard that was drawn down, blazing red eyes, a bald head that was ripe with tendrils of darkness. He seems to be adorned like the previous concept in Sith battle armor. This Sith battle armor makes him seem he is a fully fledged Sith Lord. Another important thing to note is the purple cape that is swooshing behind him, whipping in the wind. This possibly indicates he has accessed some more ethereal power of Sith sorcery. We can also see his flesh has turned a measly grey colour, similar to Sidious after the effect of his own Force Lightning was rebounded by Mace Windu's Anakin and Amethyst Blade. It appears that he had fur lining the Wampa slain on his travels. We can see here he seems like a shambling bucket of rags. Many layers of ropes, cloaks, and cloth marks his shrivel, weary frame. This one is personally my favourite, due to the high level of detail, and the fact that this could very well have taken place after Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, and the accelerated aging process of the Tatooine twins' sons took in. Finally, on the last concept for Obi-Wan Kenobi, we have Dark Obi-Wan Kenobi Old. This appears to be an early stage of Obi-Wan Kenobi than the previous one we saw later, which was a later stage. We can see Dark Obi-Wan Kenobi with his crimson blade, adorned with the Imperial officer uniform, signifying that he is possibly like Count Dooku. Count Dooku in the fact that he is noble and increasingly dramatic. Obi-Wan has a hair variation, going from bald to having actual white locks. He seems to have a Vader-style Sith collar, and as well as armor, making himself out like Vader. There also appears to be a partial respirator, possibly to inject Bacta, which is a substance in Star Wars to accelerate the healing process, into his flesh. Now, we move on to one we will have to cover in another video. Goodbye, my friends. This is where we part ways. While there are many concept arts of Kenobi, please feel free to write your own fan fictions, stories, and ideas revolving around these concept arts. I personally love the idea of many selective beings being so interested in this content, as it is truly one of my favourite subjects, due to Battlefront 4 being one of the greatest games that potentially ever could be released. Goodbye, my friends. I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away.